ESPN 1080 The Team presents the ESPN1080.com Insider Show, delivering you the latest news and notes from around the sports world. We got all your local teams covered, including the Knights.
That's it, ball game over, and the UCF Knights have upset 16th ranked Florida.
The Magic.
Howard soaring high above the rim.
The Rays.
A walk-off home run.
The Bucks.
On the rollout, Raymond throws, touchdown.
And the Knowles.
Touchdown FSU.
The Insiders are your ticket into the press box. And now, here's your Insider.
Hey, good morning, Orlando. Welcome to another edition of the ESPN 1080 Insider Show. I am Eric Lopez, your Knights Insider, alongside the NBA Magic Insider Andrew Melnick, who is hanging out with LeBron James in England, covering Liverpool soccer until this lockout is over.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I mean, hey, John Henry does own the team, so I guess I'd have an excuse.
Yes, we do. David Buckman, of course, our producer, alongside People's Insider Victor Anderson, helping him out in the booth. We got a busy show here today. We've got a lot of stuff. We're have an interview with Tristan Spourlock, UCF basketball, college basketball. Andrew, we will have basketball of some sort soon.
Yeah, it was Midnight Madness Saturday. I thought that was kind of funny that all the scrimmages and games were happening about 8 or 9, not midnight at all. Or yeah, Friday, excuse me, not midnight at all.
Yeah, what was that about?
Not really sure. Saw a little bit of North Carolina. They're going to be really good.
That's very astute there.
I know.
So we'll have Tristan Spourlock, an interview from Media Day that was this past Thursday for UCF later on the show. We will also break down college football. Seminoles back in the win. When you're struggling, you need a 3-game losing streak, you need to snap it. Who do you call? You call Duke. Football, that's what.
Yeah, it's been a while since Florida State got to play Duke, actually, with the realignment. Been 4 or 5 years, and they showed why they miss them a little bit.
They do. UCF wishes they were playing Duke. Probably wouldn't have mattered the way they played yesterday. They got smoked by SMU.
Didn't go quite as well as that championship game did last year.
That's correct. So we got a busy show now. We are scheduled. We may be joined by CBS Sports' Brett McMurphy later in the show, halfway through, on 10:25, 10:30, to talk about the latest in all this expansion, realignment in college athletics. Now, he is on connecting flights. He's covering the Texas-Oklahoma State game. He's on connecting flights to Atlanta. So hopefully, if everything works out, he will call in. But just so you know, we all have. We've had connecting flights. You know how that works sometimes, where it doesn't go on schedule.
Yeah, I'm looking at his Twitter here, at McMurphy CBS. He's all over this realignment stuff, so hopefully we will get to talk to him.
That's true, but it should be a busy day of sports. Of course, top stories from last night. The Texas Rangers advanced to the World Series for the second year in a row, and they will be playing either St. Louis or Milwaukee. Of course, they play tonight, Game 6.
Yeah, possibly the deciding game. What's funny is I think almost all of us actually picked Texas at the beginning of the playoffs. Besides, we know New York had the best record. We know Tampa was hot, and everyone in here, except pretty much for me, likes to see the Rays do well. I don't mind seeing them do well, but at the expense of Boston, I don't like it. But I think we all thought Texas, with that bullpen, by far, I think the best lineup in the playoffs, with the Yankees kind of banged up and aging. So I don't think anyone's surprised about that. Now, St. Louis, on the other hand, makes the World Series. That's going to be a bit of a surprise.
A bit of a surprise if they beat Milwaukee. But apparently most of you are not watching that either baseball series, as their ratings are low, because you're watching the NFL. So we listen to you, audience, and for that, we bring our own NFL Insider analyst here for ESPN1080.com, our new website. Charlie Bernstein now joins us. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you, Eric. Great to be here.
Yeah, Charlie's been a machine on the website.
He has been a machine.
Far.
You've been writing daily articles on ESPN1080.com, haven't you?
Yeah, that's what I do. Trying to touch on all the teams. I know a lot of people in the viewing area and the listening area. You're not just a fan of the Florida teams. I know you're a fan of all kinds of different teams in a transient state like Florida. So I try to touch on all the teams, let you know what's going on with your team, what needs to be fixed, and so on and so forth.
So check him out on ESPN1080.com. And you mentioned it. Andrew is one of the perfect example. He lives in Florida, and he's a Patriot fan. They got a marquee game with Dallas. Big shootout. Your thoughts on that game early on?
Probably the game I'm looking forward to most today. I think it should be a really fun football game. If you look at the two teams, you think New England is certainly the better football team, but I like the way Dallas matches up with the Patriots. Patriots have problems stopping people in the passing game. Des Bryant's back. Miles Austin's back at full strength. Patriots will probably do their best to try to contain Jason Witten. There's going to be some big plays to be had on the outside. I think we're looking at a good old-fashioned AFL shootout here, and I like the Patriots winning that game, but not by the number.
No, kind of a big favorite. I think a 7-point favorite. Charlie's got his picks up. Every game picked with the spread, so gamblers, go check that out, ESPN1080.com.
Or even if you're just looking for additional entertainment information.
Yeah.
That too, but, mainly gamblers. The primetime games this week, kind of a couple of dogs. I mean, we're looking at Minnesota and Chicago tonight, Jets and Miami tomorrow. You had an article up earlier this week about Mike Martz possibly being the problem in Chicago. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Jay Cutler is likely not going to make it through the season alive unless the Bears completely change their philosophy on offense. I actually got a chance to talk with, earlier in the week, George Foster, former offensive tackle for the Lions who played under Martz, and he had not too nice things to say about him. Basically, those 7-step drops, those slow-developing routes. Martz and the Bears, they put up offense. Martz only cares about numbers, according to Foster. And when you look at it, you kind of got a point. On Monday night, Jay Cutler took an insane amount of abuse. And I think a lot of that could have been fixed with just some shorter routes, some 3-step drops, stuff like that. Now, Martz said this week that he was going to change the philosophy somewhat. He was going to alter it. We'll have to see if that's the case, because Minnesota is not a good football team, but Jared Allen is a good defensive end. With an offensive line that's banged up with the Bears, we could be seeing, the backup quarterback for the Bears this week.
That would be thrilling stuff for Chicago.
Give
me your both. I want both your thoughts on this. Obviously, now teams like the Dolphins, not the Jaguars because they took Blaine Gabbert, but you have teams like the Dolphins, even the Colts to some extent, the Chiefs, the Andrew Luck sweepstakes. If you're all those teams right now, is it worth pretty much, I wouldn't say tanking the season, but pretty much lose as many games as possible to get Andrew Luck? Is it worth doing that, Charlie? Because some people say, no, you need to go all out.
It depends on who you're asking, and I don't mean which team you're asking. It depends on who you're asking in terms of, are you asking a fan? Now, if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan, this season's already lost. At 0-5, your season's lost already. You're done. You're not making the playoffs. You're going to finish in last place. Now, if you were to get the first overall pick and you could make a transition from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck, well, your team's going to be on top for about 25 years, give or take 1 or 2 years in between. There it makes sense, but try to convince one of those players on the football field or one of the coaches that are all coaching for their jobs that losing a game is in your best interest. Remember, there's jobs on the line every single week in this league. Teams aren't tanking on purpose. I don't believe teams tank on purpose because it's their jobs on the line, and everybody's getting evaluated each and every week. But does it make sense in the long term? Absolutely it does.
So you're saying as a Dolphin fan I should just root for my team to lose so we can get Andrew Luck? Is that what you advise to me?
I would absolutely advise that to you. Miami would be a wonderful place for Andrew Luck. And a lot of people say, well, you got the ghost of Marino there. That's been a while. Jay Fiedler had to follow Marino. That's done. There's been about a dozen guys that follow Jay Fiedler now. That town, I think, will embrace a great young quarterback like Andrew Luck. And when you look at the Dolphins, add another wide receiver there, maybe add a running back, and that team with a good quarterback is good to go. I mean, this isn't a horrible 0-16, 1-15 type of team, even though the record is probably going to produce that at the end of the year.
Hey, you like that, Andrew? Huh? We're coming for you, Andrew. We're coming for your Patriots.
You get Andrew Luck, you probably are coming for him. Speaking of the Dolphins playing tomorrow night, do they get off the schneid here, or do they stay in the lead for Andrew Luck?
I believe they're the clubhouse leaders, as far as it looks for Andrew Luck. I didn't examine their schedule completely, but what I could say is the only game to me that looks very winnable in their upcoming future is that Denver game in 2 weeks with Tim Tebow coming to town.
Yeah, with a halftime show dedicated to Tim Tebow.
What a brilliant marketing move that was by the Dolphins. They must have had a crystal ball.
The saddest part is it'll probably be their best attendance all year.
Absolutely, it'll be their best attendance all year. Probably be the only game they truly sell out this year. The Dolphins with Matt Moore at quarterback are just not going to beat very many teams. Matt Moore is an average guy on a great day. The receiving core, aside from Brandon Marshall, is very, very average. The defense, I think, is pretty good, but if you can't move the ball, the defense is going to be on the field longer, and they're going to get worse in the fourth quarter. I think you're going to see the Dolphins compete a lot this year. I just can't see them winning, more than 1 or 2 games. And if you ask me to point to the schedule which 1 or 2 games they're going to be, I can't really tell you.
Let's head back up to your home turf, New York. Well, actually, I guess New Jersey. It'd be at the Giants. Bills at the Giants today. Giants coming off a terrible loss. Seattle, one of the worst road teams we've ever seen, comes across the country, beats the Giants. Absolutely embarrassing loss. Now they got to take on a Bills team that's 4-1. And I apologize to our producer. I'm not trying to get under his skin here, but it was bad. He's a Giants fan. He usually has his Eli Manning jersey on. But what do you think happens today? The Giants get back in the win column and kind of bring the Bills down to earth a little bit?
Let me ask you guys a question. After seeing the Giants last week against Seattle, one of the worst teams in football, watching Tavares Jackson and then Charlie Whitehurst carve that defense up, what do you think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to do to that team?
Ryan Fitzpatrick's been very good, better than those two guys, that's for certain.
Excellent. Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick is an excellent, excellent quarterback. That said, the NFL is an up-and-down league. Tom Coughlin will have his guys ready to play coming off a loss. I like the Giants to win this game and even cover the 3-point spread.
I kind of get that same feeling.
Yeah, that's how the NFL works. What's been the bigger surprise to you? The Bills 4-1 start, the Niners 4-1, or the Eagles 1-4?
Got to be the Eagles. I hate to start with the negative, but I never bought into the dream team hype, as Vince Young put it. There was definitely some issues. The linebacking core is not great. The defensive line coming in was not great. They started 2 rookies on the offensive line, so you knew there was going to be issues there. But it's not just the way that they're losing games; it's the way they're losing them. They let San Francisco come all the way across the country and come back from a large deficit to win. They go up to Buffalo, and if they hadn't taken the first 3 quarters off, maybe the Eagles pull out a victory. But Michael Vick has been nothing short of terrible. In the first half of this year, the offensive line has not protected them. They're just doing a really poor job in almost every facet of the game. They're not stopping the run. And, they've got more talent than this. You got to think they're better than this. I have to think that Andy Reid is a better coach than this. So, they got to right the ship. Today is a playoff game for the Philadelphia Eagles. If they lose today, season's done. Season's absolutely done.
Yeah, if they lose today, I'm not sure how much longer Andy Reid will be able to prove he's a better coach than this. One of the biggest games, 2 teams, the other 2 teams Eric just mentioned, the 49ers are in Detroit today. 2 of the biggest surprises in the league. How incredible is it where Harbaugh has done in San Francisco so far?
We talk about the Rex Ryan, the coaching bloodlines. We need to start talking about the Harbaugh bloodlines. Now, I think Jim Harbaugh got his job in San Francisco partially due to the success that his brother had in Baltimore. However they hired him, it certainly worked. It's basically that same San Francisco 49ers team from last year. I mean, they didn't make a whole lot of improvements. You got to think their first-round pick, Aldon Smith, nice player, but he's still a rookie, defensive end, outside linebacker. He hasn't been contributing much. Their second-round pick, Colin Kaepernick, a quarterback, hasn't contributed at all. So it's basically the same team as they had last year, minus one of their best defensive linemen, Abreu Franklin, and they're playing so much better. I mean, through 5 games last year, they're 0-5. This year they're 4-1, headed to Detroit in a game that I think is very, very winnable for them.
That'll be a very good game. That's Charlie Bernstein, our NFL Insider here on ESPN1080.com. Charlie, can you stick around for a few more minutes?
No problem.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hit up a little college football as well, and what the heck happened to UCF yesterday against SMU, and the rest of the college football landscape, as well as other late NFL news. You're listening to the ESPN 1080 Insider Show on ESPN 1080, The Team. welcome back to the ESPN 1080 Insider Show. Eric Lopez, your Knights Insider, College Insider, alongside Andrew Melnick, your NBA Magic Insider. Charlie Bernstein, our NFL Insider, joining us via the phone there. And Charlie, before we go into college football, of course, big NFL trade deadline on Tuesday. What do you expect to happen, if anything, in the NFL?
The NFL trade deadline usually isn't like baseball or basketball. You know, people aren't watching their phones for hours. You're not refreshing your ESPN page. This year, I think there's going to be a few moves. Maybe a few minor moves. Brandon Lloyd, from what I understand, out of the Pro Bowl wide receiver out of Denver, will get traded at some point over the weekend. Another player, the rumor mill just popped up a little while ago. Jaguars cornerback Rasheed Mathis is apparently on the trade block with the Jaguars trying to rebuild. He's still a very, very good player, so if a contender needs a corner, he'd be a good guy to go after. There's some chatter in Indianapolis about possibly Robert Mathis and Reggie Wayne being on the block. I don't think at the end of the day we're going to see a whole lot of big names being moved, but I think we'll see one or two deals.
Wow. That's so. Who's the main contenders for Brandon Lloyd?
It's tough to say at this point. For me, the top two teams reside in the AFC South, Tennessee and Houston. Houston, of course, had Andre Johnson go down. He'll be down probably for another couple weeks. They need to get that offense started, especially without Mario Williams on defense. Brandon Lloyd could hold down the number one receiver spot till Andre Johnson comes back and then move into a really nice number two role. If you remember in the offseason, the Texans were trying to look for wide receiver help. They ended up not being able to get anybody of note, and Jacoby Jones has just been terrible for them. So I think the Texans certainly are a player in this, even though they acquired Derek Mason last week. As I said, the Tennessee Titans, Kenny Brigg goes down with a torn ACL about 3 weeks ago. For teams like Tennessee and Houston, they see the AFC South as, extremely winnable. Not so much in Tennessee. It's not going to have any effect on Mike Munchak's job, but, for Gary Kubiak in Houston, he needs to win this division to keep his job. So expect to see them, potentially make some moves there. The Tampa Bay Bucks, I think, would be a great fit for Brandon Lloyd. Josh Freeman needs a professional veteran wide receiver, something he doesn't have. I think I know they're against picking up veteran talent and trading their draft picks. They haven't done that in recent times, but if it's a money issue, Brandon Lloyd's only making $1.4 million for the rest of this year, and maybe use it as a 10, 11 game rental, and you see how it goes after that, or you sign him to a new contract immediately after the trade. I think Jacksonville should be in it. I give it probably a 10 to 20% chance of happening. Reason being, the GM in Jacksonville, Gene Smith, does not like to admit when he makes a mistake, and he certainly made a mistake going with what they had in wide receivers this offseason. I've heard Carolina is a team that's mentioned. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Arizona is another team. They experienced great success when they had Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden. If you add Brandon Lloyd to Larry Fitzgerald, maybe you could have some of that same success again.
Great stuff, Charlie. We're going to let you go for now, but the people can check you out on ESPN Florida and NFL Charlie on Twitter, can they?
Yes, they can, my friend.
Beautiful, Charlie. Enjoy the NFL Sunday.
Remember, those picks on the website are Charlie's, so if you bet and lose, blame him, not us.
Exactly.
Blame me.
Beautiful. Thanks, Charlie. All right, so from NFL now, we're going to switch gears quickly to college football. And, of course, the biggest story all week is, of course, expansion, realignment, off-the-field issues, and we got a special guest for that. He's been on top of the story the entire time this has developed for years now, really the last couple of years, from CBSSports.com, Brett McMurphy. And, Brett, welcome to the ESPN 1080 Insider Show.
How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. What is the latest here? We hear conflicting things. I know your colleague Dennis Dodd reported over the weekend that Boise is good as gone, going to the Big East. What's your thoughts here in the latest developments in the Big East? What do we expect this week?
All these days are running together. I think it was Friday, that I reported on CBSSports.com that there had been talks with Boise on Thursday. They had a meeting Friday in Cincinnati with UCF officials, and that they are expected to issue invites to Boise, Air Force, Navy, and UCF possibly as early as next week. 3 of those 4 schools are appear to be on board. Navy will be as soon as the exit fee is increased from $5 million to $10 million, which is expected to take place on Monday. And then after that, the league will target Houston and SMU. They have not contacted them yet, but both schools, I'm told, are definitely interested in making the jump. That would then put the Big East at 12 schools minus TCU, Pittsburgh, and Syracuse. And then even with all those pieces supposedly in place, the Big East and everybody else across the country has to wait to see what happens with Missouri. I was in Austin, Texas last night for Oklahoma State and Texas, talked to Burns Hargis, the Oklahoma State president, who's the head of the Big 12 expansion committee, and he told me that he's waiting like everyone else on what Missouri will do. He hopes they'll stay. He does not know for sure if they'll stay or go. And he did tell me that they will have, on their next board meeting, which is in about 2 weeks, they will have serious discussions on whether the league should remain at 10 schools or 12 schools, because right now there's not really a strong consensus either way. Obviously, that could be greatly impacted by whether Missouri stays or goes, and certainly if Missouri leaves, Louisville would be a prime candidate to be picked up by the Big 12.
Brett, let's say these 6 schools you mentioned do join the Big East. How many of these schools would be football only?
Boise, Air Force, and Navy. Central Florida, Houston, and SMU would be all sports members. And that makes, Boise's the big key because that helps to, retain the AQ status. And also, by bringing Boise aboard, it makes it more attractive to Air Force and also Houston and SMU. And, I know the name, name doesn't fit anymore, but basically you've got 4 teams in the western side. They would put Louisville and Cincinnati with those other 4, and then the remaining 6 schools would be in the eastern division of the Big East.
Now, the Conference USA and the Mountain West announced on Friday they're merging as kind of an alliance, and they're hoping to kind of keep everybody together and maybe get a BCS bid out of it. Does that affect any of the decisions by Boise State and Air Force and the Conference USA schools as far as going to the Big East, or you think they would leave regardless?
It certainly doesn't affect UCF, SMU, or Houston. They're as soon as they get the official invite, they're gone. Now, Boise, the only question with Boise is the travel a concern? But bottom line is the president, was at the Colorado State game yesterday and talked about, the most important thing for them is to get as close to being in an AQ conference as possible, or being able to consistently get AQ status. Jerry Palm, who does the projected BCS rankings and all the RPI stuff for us at CBS, posted something on our site the other day that basically putting Conference USA and the Mountain West together is not going to get the league get that combined league a BCS bid, because basically Conference USA as a conference overall is the 8th ranked conference. Mountain West is either 5th or 6th, depending on what numbers you look at. So basically adding Conference USA schools in theory actually weakens the entire product, and then if they lose Boise, then certainly they're losing their bell cow. So whenever they announce this, I know they want to create stability, but the first thing I thought of is just because you're creating a conference with 20 or 30 schools doesn't mean you automatically deserve a BCS bid. And certainly I think if the Big East can get those 12 schools that we just mentioned, they certainly would keep a BCS bid in 2014. I don't think there's any question about that, because they would make up 1/5 of the footprint of the eastern United States when you include the basketball schools, and then also with the impact of Boise State. I don't see any danger in losing the AQ status.
We're speaking with Brett McMurphy of CBSSports.com, college football insider for them. So you mentioned that you're confident they would keep the AQ status even if Boise State were not to go to the Big East?
I really think so. And remember, though, that the current cycle ends in 2013, and then the new one picks up in 2014. So when the new one starts in 2014, and it's basically the 11 conference commissioners plus Notre Dame, they could decide to totally redo the BCS in a totally different way. You know, Mike Slive of the SEC has talked about wanting to get 3 schools from a conference eligible for a BCS bid. Certainly that will be discussed. There's been talk that the Cotton Bowl wants to be a BCS bowl. And, you know, whether that would happen or not, I don't know. There's now 5 bowls. That would give them 6 bowls, which would be 2 more slots. So there's a lot of different things that could come into play. But I really think as long as the football and basketball teams stick together in the Big East, and I know they're 2 separate things, but when you keep them together, it makes the Big East more powerful. That I don't think they're gonna lose that AQ status.
Should Boise State, let's say, or Navy, who's been and Air Force, not go, who would the Big East target at that point?
Oh wow, well, Temple's been mentioned. Villanova, you know, would prefer not to have Temple, as I know you guys are well aware of the UCF USF headbutting through past years. But I would think Temple would probably be next in line. If they have to go further than that, maybe East Carolina. You know, as far as the Big East is concerned, they're hoping they don't get that far, but certainly it would be Temple, and then you'd have to look at Conference USA schools after that.
What changed with USF maybe to now allow UCF into the Big East?
Well, it's one thing to not want a team to come in because you feel that you're gonna help that team jump up to your level, which is USF's view on that. That you know, I can see both sides, UCF side and USF side. But basically, it got to the point of you got to forget about that because now your number one priority is making sure the league survives. And by adding, you know, UCF and Orlando, I think you guys got the 19th or 20th TV market. Obviously, having the schedule set up so every team will be able to have one trip to Florida every year. You alternate the UCF and USF games. Basically, they just, you know, whatever problems or they had with UCF joining the league, they certainly realized that, you know, look, the number one thing is we got to keep this league together, and they're going to do whatever they can for the good of the league.
Now, you mentioned the Big 12. Will they go to 10, go to 12? Missouri, what do they do? Speculation. I know Louisville and West Virginia has been long rumored for the Big 12. I mean, are they committed to the Big East long term, or do you think they would jump at the Big 12 if offered?
Who's that?
Louisville and West Virginia.
Louisville. I think either school would probably go to the Big 12. And you know, what you asked is a great question, and it's not that they're not committed to the Big East, but it's basically the BCS conferences are a huge food chain, and the SEC is at top, and the Big East is at the bottom. And any time a school has a chance to go to a conference above them and upgrade their situation, you know, I guess dump their girlfriend for a hotter girlfriend, they do it. And you know, there's every instance it happens. So. You know, certainly they're committed to make the Big East work. I don't think they're trying to do anything so it won't work. But if they get the call, they're going to leave, and that's the same reason I think if Missouri stays and the SEC has to look elsewhere, I think they'll go for an ACC school. And as much as the ACC says all their schools are committed, they increase their exit fee to $20 million. I think one of those schools would leave to go to the SEC also. It's just, you know, it's a big ladder, and people want to get on as close to the top rung as they can, and it's purely for financial reasons.
Now, should Missouri join the SEC, are we going to see them move a team like Auburn to the East, or are we going to just see Missouri in the East?
Well, the Birmingham News had a report the other day that Alabama's on board with adding Missouri as long as Missouri gets put in the SEC East, because they don't want to lose the East-West rivalry with Tennessee, and they don't also want Auburn to be in the East because that would give them more access to recruiting in Florida. So the Birmingham News reported that the conference presidents, the majority are in favor of Missouri, but there's still a few details to work out. And also, I'm not sure if Missouri knows what they want to do yet. I think they're really conflicted on whether they want to join the SEC or stay in the Big 12.
Now, Brett, you mentioned you were in Austin yesterday covering Oklahoma State and Texas. You know, all year we've heard about, since maybe the first day of the season, about this LSU-Alabama game being a potential national semifinal of sorts. We could see another one in Bedlam this year, couldn't we?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. You know, I wrote something last night or this morning about, you know, Mike Gundy and what he's done at OSU since the "I'm a man, I'm a 40" rant. Before he made that rant, he was 13-15 at OSU, and ironically, Saturday was his 40th win since the rant. He's 40-14 after the rant. So if they can keep winning, OU keeps winning, you're right. You would basically have a national semifinal game in Stillwater on December 3rd between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And, you know, and then you could have, you know, the LSU-Alabama winner playing for the SEC title in Atlanta on the same day. And then I guess what really would be interesting is if Wisconsin and Stanford keep winning. In theory, you could have two undefeated teams in the BCS game, and then two undefeated teams playing in the Rose Bowl, with the Rose Bowl undefeated champion having no shot to win in the national title.
That's insane. I mean, does all this realignment expansion get us anywhere closer to a playoff at all, or are we just stuck with this system for forever, basically?
We're stuck with it forever. The only way it changes is if the schools are so desperate that they need the revenue from a playoff, and then and only then is when we would see a playoff, because they're not going to change anything because they like the way they've got everything right now.
Last question for you, because I know you got to catch a flight. All these movement for college, all these conference changes, movements, Syracuse, Pitt to the ACC, is this all any good for college athletics? You know, where are we headed with college athletics?
You know, that's a great question. I don't think it is good, and I think, you know, 5 years down the road, 10, 20, at some point I think we're going to look at all these moves and everything that's happened in these past 2 years, and we're going to say, wow, they really screwed things up, and you're going to have teams flying all over the country, play conference games. Fans won't be able to go to away games because the cost will be too much, and it's almost turning into the NFL in a way. But you know, I agree. It's almost like the college presidents that are making these decisions, they're reacting like fans, and they're just being reactive, and I don't think they're thinking a lot of these things through. And also, I think since there's no commissioner for college football, there's no one to really, you know, kind of look over this whole thing. And if you did, you may have one person in charge that could get everybody together and say, look, for the good of the game, this is what we need to do. You guys need to quit, you know, plucking teams from other conferences. But basically, the NCAA is powerless to do that. They've admitted that. The conferences can do whatever they wish, and they're obviously going to do whatever they can to strengthen their brand. So I think you're right. Down the road, we'll look back on this, and I think it'll be bad for the game, because you look at all the rivalries that we're going to lose. We're going to lose Texas and Texas A&M. You know, we already lost Oklahoma and Nebraska. You know, Kansas says they won't play basketball with Missouri, which, you know, maybe in Florida that's not big, but in that part of the country that's a huge deal. And, you know, it's just unfortunate that all this stuff is happening.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. We'll see where college athletics takes us. But Brett McMurphy, CBSSports.com, great stuff. Tell the audience where they can find you, all your great work.
Well, obviously on the website, CBSSports.com, and you can find me on Twitter at McMurphyCBS. And hope to have some expansion update for the Big East later today if I get to Tampa safely.
Well, have a safe flight there. Thank you for joining us on this hectic schedule day.
Excuse me?
Thanks for joining us. Have a safe flight, and hope to have you on soon again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Brett McMurphy joining us from CBSSports.com. And, Andrew, your thoughts on the latest developments there?
I think all you UCF people ought to be pretty happy that he said even if Boise State doesn't join the conference, he thinks it'll keep AQ status. Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Because I don't see it being a whole lot better than what it is now. So, yeah, I'm pretty surprised by that. And it's good news for you UCF fans, you UCF grads here.
So UCF, Houston, and SMU, to reiterate what Brett McMurphy said earlier in the segment, will be headed to the Big East Conference probably by the end of this week, if not sooner. So keep it here for all the latest on that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we still got lots more. We unfortunately will have to talk about UCF on the field in football. That's a downer. But we do have basketball coming up. We have Tristan Spourlock, UCF forward/guard. We'll an interview from Media Day. We'll share that and a lot more. You're listening to ESPN 1080 Insider Show on ESPN 1080 The Team.
The Insiders will be right back.
ESPN 1080 Insider Show here on a Sunday morning. Eric Lopez, your UCF Knights Insider, alongside Andrew Melnick, your Magic and NBA Insider. We thank again Brett McMurphy from CBSSports.com, who gave us maybe a little bit, I don't know if it's exclusive stuff, but pretty much, hey, UCF, Houston, and SMU are pretty much gone, going to conference, going to the Big East. And the interesting news, he thinks that the Big East will keep its automatic status even if Boise State does not go.
Yeah, because you got to think, since it's a football-only deal, there's a chance Boise State could say no, and maybe some of these Navy and Air Force could say no as well. I don't think they will. I think they're going to wind up.
You think all three would go?
Yeah.
I think Boise will end up going. I'm not sure about Air Force and Navy. I could see those two not going, and then Big East goes in a different direction, but we'll see.
If they're going to guarantee Boise winning that conference gets them a BCS berth every year, I don't think they could turn it down.
Do you like this for college athletics? I asked Brett that. I'm going to ask you that.
No, not particularly, no. But, it's what we're coming to, and the only problem is we thought maybe I would like something like this. You'd like super conferences because it could bring you closer to a playoff, but it doesn't really look like that's happening.
I don't think not right now, but I think eventually, maybe 5-10 years. Once teams kind of catch their breath.
That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see.
That's what you're hoping for.
We'll see what happens. I thought it was interesting. He mentioned that we could have 4 undefeated teams with Oklahoma State winner, LSU, Alabama winner. If Stanford can beat Oregon and Wisconsin, really, they're at Michigan State this week, but it's not that tough. They'll play Nebraska again probably, but we saw what they did to Nebraska once. And then he didn't even mention we had Boise State. We could wind up with 5 undefeated teams at the end of the year.
But we don't need a playoff, right? We don't need a playoff.
No,
not at all. Just because those teams are going undefeated, it's kind of a joke. Oklahoma State. I know you were impressed with them. Can they beat Oklahoma? I think they got a shot. They can knock off Oklahoma at home at Bedlam, right?
I think they're offensively they're about as good as Oklahoma. Justin Blackman's as good as it gets. They've really found a running game lately. Brandon Whedon's been great. My big problem with them is I just think Oklahoma's defense is miles ahead of Oklahoma State's.
Yeah, I think that might be the difference there. Well, let's go focus on the field here, and let's start with a quick note on the in-state teams. By the way, we will have a Tristan Spourlock interview. Carson Ingles, who is not here because Buckman banned him from the show because he picked so terrible in the NFL. It was so bad how he picked last week that Buckman not only banned him for the NFL segment, he decided to ban him for the entire show. Buckman, explain yourself.
I told him not to come. Basically, just as like, if you're going to be an insider, you got to provide, solid information here. That's why you're an insider. And then to pick so poorly, especially after
picking the Bucks too. That was really the one that really put it over the top.
40-something to 3?
48-3.
Wow.
Biggest blowout Bucks have had in 12 years.
Yeah, and they've been bad over the 12 years.
I think that deserves a ban.
It's what happens when they go out to the West Coast. I think the last time they got blown out like that, they were in Oakland.
Commissioner Goodell called me and told me to suspend him for a week. So
rightly so. So we'll get into our NFL picks later. Tristan Spourlock, we'll have that in about 5 minutes, by the way. That interview will air in about 5 minutes. But first, UCF football on the field. Great news off the field. Not so good, Andrew, on the field. They get into Dallas and got stampeded by the Mustangs in a rematch of this USA title game. Special teams, once again, was a disaster for UCF, giving up a punt return for a touchdown. They gave up another long punt return. They set up another score. Offensively, they just can't throw the football. Godfrey didn't really do a lot. The receivers can't get open. George O'Leary even said after the game that Blake Bortles now is going to play more. Defensively, no pass rush whatsoever, and they got burned over the top by J.J. McDermott and SMU, who looks really good. That could be a great game. Houston, SMU down the road could be the 2 best teams in Conference USA, but boy, UCF is struggling right now.
It's going to be tough for any team to beat SMU if you can't rush the passer. I'm a little surprised after Kyle Padron had a good year last year. Little inaccurate, got benched early on in the
A&M game.
Loss to Texas A&M.
First half.
And since then, they've been great. And if you watched, I know you did, Eric, you watched that A&M SMU game. If not for a couple of dumb mistakes by him, they could have been in that game.
No, you're right.
They looked like they don't have quite as talented a team as A&M, obviously, but they could have played with them without all those mistakes, and then they went on, blew a lead against TCU, but rebounded, beat them in overtime, got a huge win there. They look really good. I mean, they've got speed on the outside. You talked about McDermott; he's playing at a high level. They don't like to run the ball very much, but when they do, Zach Line, a converted linebacker. And for you guys who haven't seen him, yes, there is a pretty good white running back in college football.
It happens, folks. It happened. No, SMU's very good. June Jones doing a nice job. By the way, a lot of people kind of giving SMU a hard time because the attendance was not very good yesterday for that game. There's plenty of seats available for that SMU UCF game. But I'm going to defend SMU and the people in Dallas, all right? 40 minutes away, you're from Arlington Ballpark for Game 6 of the ALCS. You're about an hour and a half or two away from College Station, where A&M is playing Baylor in a matchup of top 25 matchups. You're 3 hours away from Austin, where Texas is playing Oklahoma State. What I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff going around that game, and SMU-UCF Conference USA Showdown is kind of in the bottom of that list.
Yeah, and you got to save up for weeks to get a ticket to a Cowboys game anyway.
That's a lot of money as well, and now the Rangers going to the World Series. UCF, and we'll get into this a lot more, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, because yours truly and Andrew Melnick will be filling in on Tuck and O'Neill all week. Starting tomorrow, we'll be joining with Jerry O'Neill, of course, who's witnessed the game in Dallas. So we're going to break down UCF a lot, I'm sure, during the week. But the Knights, do you think Blake Bortles is the answer, or is the answer more complicated?
I think the answer is a little more complicated than that. They've got to find more of a running game. We thought they maybe picked it up a little bit against Marshall last week. This week they couldn't really run the ball outside of some scrambling by Jeff Godfrey. I don't think it's completely time to give up on Godfrey yet. I mean, people kind of annoyed at this guy because they've had so many quarterback problems recently. I mean, dating back to since Ryan Schneider got thrown out of school, they haven't had consistent quarterback.
Love that.
They haven't had consistent quarterback play since then.
What years were that?
That was 03, my friend. That was 2000 to 2003, the great Ryan Schneider.
Because I remember our football team went to go see Stephen Moffitt's debut as a true freshman.
Against Marshall. I remember. I was there. So we'll see what UCF does. They got a short week. They play at UAB on Thursday night. Quick word, Seminoles finally get on the win column. Hey, if you got a losing streak, just play Duke. That was welcomed.
Yeah, I mean, not a good Duke team, obviously. Not quite as terrible as normal. They got a nice win over FIU, although they did start the season with a loss to Richmond, which was absolutely embarrassing. But they played better since then. Florida State defense did a pretty good job of shutting down, for the most part, a pretty good quarterback with some decent receivers. And, it was Duke, but it was nice to see them finally run the ball. They might have found their running back, true freshman Devonta Freeman, 108 yards, first 100-yard rusher this year. And that's a different team, too, when E.J. Manuel's healthy. I mean, they looked much, much more crisp, better on offense.
So did you see some positive signs that give you optimism that they can kind of really avoid this sinking ship here, maybe get on a run?
Yeah, there's some positive signs. Of course, another guy, Jacoby McDaniel, goes down for the season. The nose guard who started a bunch of games, a junior, he's out for the year now, too. They've had so many injuries. Rashad Green, their stud, got hurt. But they might have found another young receiver in Christian Green from right over in Tampa. He played pretty well. Redshirt freshman, was kind of the main man on offense for them. There's some good signs, yeah, and there's another good sign that they don't really play anybody for the rest of the year. I mean, their toughest game is probably either Miami or Florida, who each have 3 losses apiece, just like Florida State.
Good segue, Andrew. That's why you're in this radio business. The Gators lose to Auburn in an ugly game, 14-6. Brissett played, started the game. Driscoll came in relief. Who the heck's going to be the Gator quarterback down the road?
Eric Lopez.
No.
Maybe. They look absolutely lost with Jeff Driscoll at the helm, and I don't want to completely bash Driscoll because, well, he's barely played. I mean, he's a true freshman. We know him because he's from around here. I know Vito went to Haggerty. He's not ready to play. He should probably be redshirting. Jacoby Brissett doesn't really look ready. I never thought Florida would be this sad to see a slightly average quarterback like John Brantley go down, but it has really cost them. They can't score at all.
No.
And their defense played very well. I mean, Auburn did next to nothing outside of the muff punt and then one decent little drive. I believe Ontario McCaleb scored at the end of that drive to put them up 14-6. And Auburn did try and help them by missing a couple field goals. I think they made one at the end of the game to ice it. But yeah, Florida's offense in a lot of trouble. Their defense isn't bad. It looks better. It looked a lot better this week against a decent Auburn offense that's played pretty well for a majority of the year. But they're in trouble. They're going to have a lot of trouble beating anyone with a pulse without that quarterback.
That had to be a rough game for both Auburn and Florida fans as they're watching that game. Auburn fans are saying, "Man, we missed Cam Newton," and Florida's like, "We missed Tim Tebow."
Yeah, I mean, this is teams.
This would have been a great game 2 years ago.
2 of the last 3 national champions. Yeah. So
it's rough.
It was tough.
And
but
that's a big
Auburn 5-2, I think.
Very nice.
There's people projecting them to have a losing record.
They did. You're right. Gene Chiswick's done a nice job. I think a better job this year than he did last year, to be honest.
He only two of the, arguably the best offense and defensive player in the country last year.
Yeah. Big loss for Florida because that puts them now 3 losses in the conference, 2 games back of Georgia, a game back of South Carolina. And I say that because South Carolina won at Mississippi State but may have lost Marcus Lattimore for the rest of the year. This SEC East now is wide open, and it opens the door for Georgia. And, of course, Florida, Georgia in 2 weeks in Jacksonville. Florida's hopeful that John Brantley will return by that, but it may not matter. They might be out of the East race, and it could be Georgia's to lose.
Yeah, if Florida wins that game, of course, Georgia only won conference loss. They're going to be right back in it because Georgia still has to play Auburn, still has some tough games left on the schedule. But, yeah, I think the big loser now has got to be South Carolina. This was their year to win that division again and have a better season than last year. And they still only have 1 loss without Marcus Lattimore. They're going to be in a lot of trouble.
That's the SEC wrap-up. Miami beat North Carolina, their first ACC win of the year, but, it's North Carolina. Carolina's a basketball school.
Carolina's got a nice little team. They outplayed Miami for 3 quarters, but, Miami went up 17-0 right away, and North Carolina couldn't climb all the way back.
No. But, of course, Carolina's more excited because Midnight Madness was this weekend. College basketball practice open over the weekend. UCF had their Midnight Madness on Friday, had Media Day on Thursday. David Buckman was on all of that. He was covering all that. This guy, when he's not at the station, he's at UCF events, aren't you, David? You don't have a house, really.
I run UCF. Not really, but
you should.
I enjoy it. I love being there.
President Buckman.
President Buckman. So, Media Day, as we mentioned, packed house, the Media Day. You were there. I saw you were doing some interviews yourself for your own work.
Yeah, I was doing some interviews. I didn't get to interview Spourlock, so I'm kind of looking forward to this.
That's right. Carson Ingles did actually, before he was banned on the show from David Buckman, interview Tristan Spourlock on Media Day as they preview the basketball season. Tristan transferred out of Virginia, sat out all of last year. He's going to play this year, small forward 2-guard. Let's take you to this interview now. It's Carson Ingles, exclusive interview with Tristan Spourlock of UCF basketball, so we talk college basketball.
Tristan, time is finally here. You're getting ready to get in there and play. How excited are you after sitting out this year to finally get into some games?
I'm so excited. It's just a blessing being able to, get through that whole year. No major injuries, nothing, no setbacks, just being able to be ready and finally be able to play. It's just a blessing.
Was the year able to do anything for you in terms of helping you learn, helping you understand, the way the systems run, the way things go, the way Coach Jones likes to play?
Oh, huge. I just matured so much, just being under Coach Jones, and he just showed me how to come and work hard every single day. No plays off, no breaks, no complaining, no whining, and then being able to watch the system and being able to, being on the scout team, I was able to play so many other different positions, and I learned every position, except for the point. I know every position, where they have to be, where they have to go, so I felt like even not just for myself, but the freshmen coming in, I'm allowed to show them, hey, look, this is where you got to be, this is what you got to do. You come off, 2 dribbles, pass back. Like, I feel like I'm able to be a better leader.
Seems like this team is going to be one of versatility. A lot of guys that are going to shift in different positions. I think you're a guy that can definitely do that. How does your versatility help you?
Oh, it helps me a lot. I'm able to play the 3 different positions, the 2, the 3, and the 4. Coach Jones has used me in that, and that's what I want to ultimately be. I want to be able to not just be one-dimensional. I want it to be very hard to guard me, and Coach Jones puts me in great positions where, sometimes I have a 4-man running out at me, and sometimes I have a smaller 2-guard guarding me, and I can post up. So I really, I love the offense, just the way how it flows and how it goes.
When you look at what your role can be for this season, and where do you envision yourself? What kind of role can you craft out for yourself on this team?
Oh, just being a matchup nightmare. Just being able to be 6'8", 220 pounds, and just being able to, do everything. Post, pop out, pick and pop, spot up, shoot, crash the boards, being athletic, push the ball on breaks, just being very athletic. And I think that's, where I'm my best at, where I can do many different things and I'm just not having to just be a shooter or just be a post guy or just set screens. I can do a lot of different things.
Are there a couple guys maybe off the radar now that people don't know about as well? We know what Marcus is going to do. We know what Keith's going to do. We know what AJ's going to do. But guys behind them that might make a big impact on this team.
I got to go with Isaiah Sykes. I feel like just seeing him in the gym and work hard on his jump shot every single day is going to be huge. I think that he's going to be good at that. He's going to be able to do that very well and come in and just score different ways as well. I think he's huge. And all the freshmen, I think all 3 of the freshmen are going to be able to
well, I was going to ask you about those freshmen. I mean, have they grown a little bit? You get to go to Canada, they get to play, they get to get in with all you guys and play in real game situations.
I feel like that was huge for them. A great experience for freshmen to be able to come in right away and play, and see what it's, like, fast pace, up and down, hard defense, no calls on the road. I think they'll be fine, though, you know, and them being able to practice early and get their feet wet will be great for them.
Leadership on this team. As some teams have problems with leadership, it seems like you guys have a pretty good crew. You know, some veteran guys. Really, everyone is pretty vocal, I think. You guys kind of just always able to keep each other accountable and have sort of a good rapport?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I've never been on a team like this where there's no, you know, AJ's probably the most vocal, but there's no one set leader. I think that, you know, everybody holds each other accountable, and nobody's scared to go to anybody and tell them, hey, look, straighten up, or hey, look, let's do this or do that. You know, that's the key to a great team. You know, you don't have to have, you know, one guy sit and babysit everybody else. You know, everybody knows, look, if we have 6:30 workouts, everybody needs to be there at 5:30 dressed and ready with their mind focused. And if they're not, there's no problem for me, Dwight, you know, Zeke to go up to them and tell them what they need to do. So I think that's a sign of a very mature and really, you know, focused team ready to take that next step.
Is there any things from last year that maybe this team can, you know, take with them into this year, or going on the big winning streak, then having some adversity, picking it back up at the end of the year? Can you guys kind of remember that and take that forward?
I think we remember it vividly. I think it's just mental toughness. That's probably the biggest thing we take from it. Just we have to be so much more tougher than last year. I'm not saying the guys we had last year weren't tough, but maybe they just didn't know how to win. You know, coming in, nobody expected Coach Jones to be able to go 14-0 and get all the attention we got, but we did. And guys, I think were not scared of it, but just taken aback, like, oh, wait, now we're getting hunted. You know, last year I felt like we were trying to go after everybody else, but at one point it turned on us, and everybody was coming out on us. Yeah. So, you know, now it's totally different. Now we're excited. Now we're looking our lips for it. Like, you know, we're ready. We're ready to go after it and take on whoever wants to take us.
Yeah, season schedule. You get to go to the Bahamas early on. The conference is always going to be tough. What are your thoughts on the schedule as you sort of look here at the beginning of things?
I'm excited. I get to play against ODU. I have a lot of friends from back home play with Boo Williams who play on that team. The Bahamas is going to be a great tournament. I got a lot of friends on different teams out there, but it's all business when we go out there. And I think that you know, this Bahamas trip really got us focused to be able to travel. I mean, the Canada trip got us to be able to travel and play right away, and not as much sleep, and be able to, you know, really get into the, you know, on the road type mentality. So I think it's gonna be good.
What goals for yourself personally, and then team goals? What are they for the season?
I mean, you know, of course, team goals. You just want to win. That's the most important thing. You know, moral victories kind of go out the window when you kind of come to that upper echelon type of teams and top 25 teams. You know, more victories, you know, are good for teams who, you know, finish 9th or 10th in the league. We're trying to finish, you know, number 1. We want to be the best team we can be, come out and play hard, and we expect to win. And, you know, that's what we want to do. But personally, I just want to go out and have fun and play hard. You know, it's been a year since I haven't played, so I just want to get my feet wet, you know, but not come in timid. You know, I know what I can do on the basketball court, and I want to do it. I want to be able to show UCF, Coach Jones, everybody, you know, why, you know, he recruited me to come down here and play. So I'm real excited.
Well, best of luck, Tristan, and we look forward to it, and we look forward to your season.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, that was Tristan Spourlock, the swingman for the UCF men's basketball. We'll have a lot of college basketball coverage on this ESPN 1080 Insider Show, as well as on ESPNFlorida.com. You'll have the Spourlock audio later on the week on the website, so check out the site. But, of course, we know it. We're a couple hours away from NFL kickoff. You know what that means. Buckman, what do we got? 6-pack picks.
Yeah, man, we got the 6 picks of the week here, all right? Let's start this off real quick. We got the Rams at the Packers. Packers favored by 14.
Give me the Packers.
Packers cover.
All right, Pack. Both.
Easily. Rams are terrible.
Yeah, that's what they say. Jags at Steelers. Steelers favored by 12.5.
Charlie likes the Jaguars. I don't know why. I'm going to go with Steelers. Big.
I'm going to say the Jaguars actually cover the spread, lose by 10 or so.
Okay, on to the next. We got Dallas at New England. New England is favored by 6.5.
I like Dallas. They might even win this game outright, but I'm going to go to cover the spread. High-scoring game.
I think Dallas covers, too. I think New England wins the game by 3.
All right, Vikings at Bears. Bears favored by -2.5.
Give me the Bears in this one. I think the Bears cover. The Vikings are awful. Chicago, I think, bounces back.
Bears win. Christian Ponder countdown continues.
Okay, the countdown to the FSU boy. All right, Texans at Ravens. Ravens -7.
Great football game here, but no Andre Johnson. Give me Baltimore.
Yeah, no Andre Johnson, no Mario Williams. Maybe even more important to give me the Ravens.
All righty. We then have the 49ers at the Lions. Lions -4.
Give me Detroit. San Francisco got to go all the way to Detroit. Give me Detroit.
If this was in San Francisco, I'd take the 49ers. I say Detroit wins. Pretty close game. I'll say they win 31-24.
All right, so it looks like the only game that is really going to separate you guys is the Jags and Steelers. So
I'm screwed.
You're dependent on Blaine Gabbert, Andrew.
We had to have one game different, right?
And that's
how about you guys pick the Monday night game right now? Go.
Go Jets. Dolphins. Andrew Luck sweepstakes continue, baby. Andrew Luck looked great.
Jets win. The spread 7. I'd probably call it a push. That's a cop out. So we'll go Jets cover.
All right, there it is.
You're shocked we got that fast, didn't you?
Yeah, that was quick. That was quick. We still have like a minute and like 20 seconds to sing and dance here. So.
Beautiful.
That gives me time to tell everyone to go to ESPN1080.com and read about Magic second round pick Justin Harper.
That's Andrew's newest article there. Of course, since you talked NBA, Tuesday, big meeting, mediator involved. What do you expect?
A federal mediator is getting involved. He's had a lot of success before. I don't think he talked to people that were this far apart ever. I expect troubles to continue for a long time.
Why don't you mediate those meetings? You can help.
I'm fully on one side. I don't think David Stern would let me mediate with some of my opinions on this lockout.
And we'll hear those opinions this week on Tuck and O'Neill. Andrew Melnick and myself will be on all week starting tomorrow from 3 to 6 with Jerry O'Neill. Check it out on ESPNFlorida.com. Thanks to everybody for listening in. This has been the ESPN 1080 Insider Show on ESPN 1080, The Team.